Ham Fixin's Net, first and third Monday, 7 p.m., W5XC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Do that very enthusiastically, too. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come now. This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9er. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the famous Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, whiskey5friedchicken.org. That's W5FC.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. We have general announcements. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. National Space Society events. Discussion topic of the evening was up. Space exploration and space history. Constellation of the week. Space launches for the week. Recent astronomical discoveries. Visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Astronomical Q&A. And the 73 round. That's a lot of stuff. Will we get to it all? Probably not, but we'll get through all the good stuff. As I mentioned, all amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in, so let's go ahead and do exactly that. Let's take low-power, short-time check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low-power, short-time.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus for far northeast Dallas, low power.
Well, I got one. I got W5GUS Gus in far northeast Dallas. He's low power. Okay, I will continue. Let's take general check-ins now. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Alpha Charlie 5, Delta Lima, Dave, Carrollton.
This is November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill in Irving.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto.
KF5, JHA, Chaz, Mesquite.
Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Echo, India, Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Whiskey, Victor, Lima, James in Carrollton.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite.
All right, let me go ahead and acknowledge those folks since there's a pause. I've got AC5DL, that's Dave in Carrollton, N5BB, Mr. Bill Irving, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto, K5JHA, Chaz in Mesquite, K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan, K5ZBL, Mr. Bill Farmers Branch, KG5EIU, David in St. Paul, KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima, that's James in Carrollton, welcome, N5OS, Clay in Mesquite. The usual suspects are checking in. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting.
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Kilo, Uniform, David, Mesquite.
Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie, Brian in Roanoke.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas.
All right, picked up 4 more this evening. I got KG5 UKU, David in Mesquite, KG5 ZMG, that's Joe in Arlington, I think over on Echolink. I've got KB5 DMC, that's Brian in Roanoke, and K5 TSK Burrow in Dallas. One more round and then I'll run over to Echolink. So one more round RF. Please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
All right, picked up one more. I got Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Did I get that right? I had a brain lock there for a minute.
Yes, you did. KB9S, okay.
All right, thanks, Sean. And now I'll go over to Echolink. If you're on Echolink and you would like to check in, and I bet you do, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. I will give you extra time because Echolink is sometimes slow. So go ahead, Echolink only.
From Blue Springs, Whiskey 0, Mike, Bravo Charlie, Shane.
And that's me. It's
Kilo X-Ray 7, Whiskey, Tango, Foxtrot. Sean, mobile from Dallas at this time.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey J, no ever.
All right, we picked up 5, actually. I'm sorry, 4. We got W0MVC, that's Shane and Bethany in Blue Springs. Welcome back, both of you. KX7, WTF, Sean, mobile in Dallas somewhere. KG5BZW, Jay near Weatherford. All right, I'll open it up to anybody, anywhere who'd like to check in. By the way, anybody on Echolink doesn't have a mic, just tell me you would like to be checked in. Just say, hey, I'm here. So, everyone else, anybody else who would like to check in before we begin, please come down with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. All right, well, that's exhausted for now. We'll go ahead and take additional check-ins a little later. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham astronomical space or of general interest of licensed hams. Please come now with your call sign.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
N5VB, go ahead, Dave. Bill. Go ahead, Bill. You could be Dave, but you're really Bill. Go ahead.
Open the pod bay door, Dave. This is N5BB. First, just reminding everybody that the Dallas Amateur Radio Club has their meeting on the air tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. on this repeater. Then there's an AMSAT net at 8 p.m. on this repeater on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday of this coming week, there's another MSAT net on the Arlington repeater at 9 p.m. This is the 147.14. So, other things that have happened, and if I'm stepping on some other people's toes, I apologize. I just want to make sure everybody hears about this. The NASA's SpaceX launch, the SpaceX launch of the NASA Crew to the International Space Station, the first one for a NASA Crew. The previous one was kind of a SpaceX crew, I believe. Anyway, this first crew launch was supposed to occur today, but they had some weather problems. So the relaunch time should be tomorrow, Sunday, at 2:15 Central Time, 3:15 Eastern Standard Time. So you can find links to this at the NASA Live kind of websites and things. So that's some space news that's happening. Other things, the Mars sample return missions have been delayed. So originally, the Perseverance rover, when it gets to Mars early this coming year, it's going to start going around collecting some samples and dropping them off at known locations. Then, a couple of years from now, there's going to be another mission going to pick those up. And that mission is going to have a rover that goes back, collects them, and then in a very ambitious project, shoots them up to Mars orbit, where there's going to be a European Space Agency spacecraft, the Mars orbiter, that's going to rendezvous and collect them from that were shot up from the ground of Mars. It's then going to return them to Earth and drop them on Earth. There are many, many places for things to go wrong. And they had a very ambitious schedule for getting all this done. So a review panel has just strongly suggested, this independent review panel, that they delay this thing 1 to 2 years so they have a much higher chance of success. So that's some other news, and that's all I got in 5EB.
All right, thank you, Bill, and thank you for giving some of those announcements on your net control. You got to do a lot of them, and thank you for that. I do have maybe a correction. I'm on the SpaceX site. I was going to make this announcement as well because it's part of my discussion this evening, but I have, and I'm looking at SpaceX, it says the launch window opens at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. So I'm thinking it's after that. Bill, you want to go look it up and see if that's correct or not? I'll come back to you.
Okay, I'm looking at the NASA YouTube SpaceX launch site, but I will go look and see. Right now, again, this is saying 3:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I'll go look. You sure you're not looking at Universal Time or something? Anyway, N5BB.
No, I thought that might be the case, but it's 0027 UTC time, so that's the opening of the launch window. So I don't know. I thought it was curious as well. Yours makes more sense, but this is what they got on the SpaceX.com. Maybe they made a mistake. I don't know. But let me know later, and we'll come back to it because I don't want to miss that at all. All right. Anyone else have any announcements they want to bring to the net, and then I'll give some of mine. Please come now. All right, I'm being told by my fact checker over here that CNN also says 7:27 for the launch. Okay, don't forget DARC Nets. Mondays are a big night for Nets, as is Saturdays, which is the night of Nets. But Mondays we have the first week Ham Fixins at 7 p.m. The second week at 7 p.m. is MCOM 101. Third week is Ham Fixins, a second helping, where we talk about recipes and cooking. Why not, right? Fourth week is GeekNet, which is anything you want to talk about, amateur radio or just geeky stuff. Come in and discuss that. There's usually a trivia question or a teaser, so come on by. Fifth week, when there is one, is a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. So on-air participation is encouraged, usually contests of some sort. On Friday evenings, don't forget the CERT simulation, or CERT City, which is at 7:30 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5GRH, is usually net control, and she does the content for the net. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday, CERT City. All are welcome. Of course, Saturday evenings is the night of Nets, TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m., Skynet at 9 o'clock, and let's see, and then the Afterglow Movie Net. Where did the rest of my notes go? Oh, well, they disappeared. Don't forget, the first and third Saturdays, Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, which we will have coming up here on Sunday, as Bill mentioned. And then finally, daily, there's the Lunch Bunch Net at 12 noon, Monday through Friday. There's always a survey question. Have lunch with us. And then the ARRL Net, National Traffic System Training Net, is every night at 6:30 p.m. Talks about formalized traffic. So by all means, check those all out. All of this information is available on the club website, w5fc.org. Just look for nets in the pull-down at the very top of the screen.
Inside BB recheck.
Yes, Phil, go ahead.
I stand corrected. The problem is this stupid NASA Live Launch YouTube site. It talks about tune in starting at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, that's just when their coverage is going to start. You are more than correct. The actual launch is at 6:27 p.m. Central Time. That's 6:27 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, late afternoon. That's 0027 UTC. Okay? That's the actual launch. But you can tune in hours earlier at 2:15 here Central Time and hear them talking about it for hours and hours and hours. Sorry about that, N5BB.
That's fine, Bill, and I'll probably watch hours and hours of it anyway, so I can tune in early and watch the whole process, which they did on the Demo 2 mission back in the summer. So I'm looking forward to it. I love live space launches, and by the way, there's a survey question. If you're on the Facebook page, you'll find there's a question. Do you know what Tri-SCE2-AUX is? We call it Tri-SCE2-AUX Day today. If you want to answer the question, say yes you do or no you don't, go ahead and do it. That's just an experiment. But we'll talk about it later on in the net, and it's really kind of interesting. All right, tonight's Afterglow info. Everybody listen up. Here it is. Swan peered around the corner and scanned the dirty streets. He just had his Warrior leather vest dry cleaned, and it had a new car smell. And it was obvious. Off in the distance, he could see another gang, the Mimes, a New York City gang who never spoke. They were walking the streets and climbing imaginary walls. Another roving gang followed them, the Grammarians. They were armed with heavy and lethal Webster dictionaries. The leader had a thesaurus, a proven weapon in word warfare. You never messed with them. Multi-syllable words and I can't even say it. Posits were their weapon of choice. Why did I choose that word? I can't even pronounce it. Yet another group appeared. This time, it was the Accordions, a musical group who were routinely beat up by just about everyone else. The gangs descended on the hapless group. Join us for the future, yes, future world of the Warriors, with music by that ham guy named Joe Walsh, tonight at 10:30 p.m. And I believe the movie was supposed to take place in the future, which was 1990? I don't know. The movie came out in 1970. No, I'm sorry, it came out in, I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Watch the movie. It's available. You can keep up with all of DAR's events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, which I mentioned before, w5sc.org. I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge KN6KNE. That is Denny, who's in Fullerton, California. Denny, I got you checked in. Thanks for joining us this evening. Do I have any additional check-ins who would like to join us this evening? Please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from, and I'm going to get all you folks over on the YouTube here in a minute. So anyone over air, please come now.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
All right, very good. I've got you. KG5APL. That's Patrick in Dallas. Welcome back. All right, give me a second here. I got to sum up everybody over on YouTube. Give me a minute.
5BB, additional comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill. I'll just finish this up while you make your comment.
I had another news item, which I don't know if we'll discuss, but I thought I'd just bring it up real quick. Back a couple of weeks ago, I believe I may have been talking about the fact that it appeared that phosphine was discovered in the atmosphere of Venus. I know we discussed it somehow on this net. Phosphine is something which is hard to find on Earth because it's very reactive, but it might indicate that there's the same kind of reactions that cause biochemistry on the Earth. However, there's a bunch of new papers out, two main ones, that just came out here in late October, and they say, no, there's no phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus. So one of the papers is called, the title of the paper is No Phosphine in the Atmosphere of Venus. That's really direct. And the other paper is the statistical reliability of 267 gigahertz JCMT observations of Venus. So there's a controversy about whether there's phosphine up there. So, you know, planetary science is really hard, and Venus is incredibly difficult because it's all shrouded, and except for radar, we don't know what's going on down there on the surface. All attempts to land something on Venus have failed a few seconds after they've landed. That's all I got. Venus is a mystery planet in 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. And yes, it's also very controversial, apparently. Sort of like Pluto, that on-again, off-again planet. I wish it'd make up its mind what it wants to be, a planet or a planetoid. I guess time will tell. This is KE5ICX from Net Control for Skynet. So let me give everybody's name here over from Brookhaven. I got Adamaris, Jacqueline, Jason, Levi, Victor, Enrique, and Chip Mas. I hope I got that right. He's out listening on his ham radio here in Farmers Branch. I hope you get a license, or you have a license. You can always check in. If you don't have a license, it's time to get one because you've got a radio to go along with a potential license. So here we go. All right, any additional check-ins before we go to the topic for this evening?
Is Kilo Fox 5, Tango Hotel Bravo, Brent and Henrietta, 73, back to net.
All right, very good. I got KF5THV. That's Brent, one of our regulars. He is checked in. 29, not too bad. All right, topic this evening is, oh, look at that. That worked. All right, let me throw over the screens up here. I call it the Magic Dragon, America's Return to Space. And I took this from several articles. There may be some overlapping, but let me see what I can do here. SpaceX and NASA are targeting for Sunday, November 15th, for Falcon 9 launch of Dragon's first operational crew mission, called Crew-1, to the International Space Station, ISS, from Historic Launch Complex 39A, LC-39A, at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The instantaneous launch window opens at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 6:27 our time, of course, tomorrow, and 0027 UTC on November 16th. Following stage separation, SpaceX will attempt to land Falcon 9's first stage on the Just Read the Instructions drone ship, which is stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. The launch webcast will go live about 4 hours before launch. Tune in there to watch live. As As part of the commercial crew program, NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and JAXA astronaut Siochi Noguchi will fly aboard Dragon on its first 6-month mission to the ISS. Following Dragon's second demonstration mission, or Demo 2, NASA certified SpaceX for operational crew missions to and from the space station. Crew-1 is the first of 3 scheduled Dragon flights over the course of 2020 and 2021. The return of human spaceflight to the United States is one of the safest, most advanced systems ever built as a turning point for America's future space exploration, and it lays the groundwork for missions to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Crew-1, as the flight is called, will be SpaceX's first full-length mission for NASA. It's also the company's second time launching people and the longest duration human space mission ever launched from U.S. soil. The current record, 84 days, was held since the longest Skylab mission more than 45 years ago. Once the crew members dock to the ISS, they're expected to stay aboard the floating laboratory for about half a year. The mission is scheduled to lift off Saturday evening, but after a launch readiness review on Friday, NASA and SpaceX decided to delay. NASA cited onshore winds and first-stage booster recovery readiness as the reasons. The latter refers to the Falcon 9's rocket booster, which is programmed to land itself on a ship at sea after it releases the Crew Dragon into orbit. The booster can be reused for future launches. NASA said Tuesday that after analyzing flight data from SpaceX Demo 2 mission earlier this year, the company's launch system had ticked off the last requirements to be fully certified for routine use by NASA astronauts. That approval was the culmination of nearly a decade of funding and work in NASA's partnership with SpaceX. Hopkins and his fellow crew members are now scheduled to lift off at 7:27 Eastern Time on Sunday. The rocket will launch from the Space Center in Cape Canaveral. The members of the Crew-1 are embarking on a 6-month science mission, which is exciting for people involved in the orbital and space science world because 4 crew members making the trip amounts to more hands available on the station to do more experiments in microgravity. It's going to be exciting to be able to see how much work we can get done when we get there, Hopkins said Monday. But first, of course, the astronauts will have to get there. The actual trip to the ISS takes about 8.5 hours from launch Sunday evening to docking with the station early Monday morning. Crew-1 is part of the culmination of NASA's commercial crew program that's been years in the works. For decades, NASA has typically developed its own rockets and spacecraft internally with the help of contractors, but the commercial crew program works more like chartering a flight. Companies like SpaceX and Boeing have vehicles designed to be used by other customers, and NASA can hitch a ride on them. It's also a huge step in bringing spaceflight back to U.S. soil. From the end of the Space Shuttle program in 2011 up until the Demo 2 crew mission that sent 2 NASA astronauts to the ISS aboard a Crew Dragon earlier this year, NASA has relied on Russian Soyuz spacecraft to shuttle the astronauts to orbit. Demo 2 was considered a successful demonstration of Crew Dragon, and NASA looks at Crew-1 as the first official crew rotation mission from U.S. shores since the retirement of the shuttle. It's exciting, especially with Crew-1 being the first time we've ever put 4 people on a space capsule ever. As humans, that's pretty cool, explained NASA's Anthony Varela, the lead flight director for the mission. It's also the longest mission of a crewed U.S. capsule ever. SpaceX Crew-1 astronaut mission for NASA is now scheduled for launch of the International Space Station this Sunday. Well, I ran a little short on that. I wasn't sure, but I think that's good enough for now. We have another thing that we're also going to be talking about this evening later on in the net, like what is SCE to aux. So we're going to go ahead and go to, wow, I guess maybe we are. No, let's do it. What's up? With Chaz, wake up. Run back from the refrigerator now. You're up early. From KE5ICS.
Well, good evening, everyone. Yes, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree's in astrophysics, and I am the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Slide number 2, please. On November the 8th, the moon was at its third quarter. That was about 6 days ago, something like that. On November the 14th, wait, that's tonight. The moon phase is at its new. The moon will be at its first quarter on October 21st, that's a week from now, and on November the 30th, the moon will be full. Of course, the moon will be full because it will have already had a great Thanksgiving meal. Oh, I'm sure I heard somebody groan out there. Slide number 3. Yesterday on November the 13th, early morning eastern sky, you could have found Venus, Mercury, the moon, and Spica all in conjunction. From top to bottom, Venus was the brightest, then below Spica, then below Spica was the moon, and the lowest in the sky would have been Mercury. I got to see a glimpse of it yesterday. It was kind of cool. Slide number 4. On November the 18th and November the 19th, that's just in a few days from now, the moon will be in conjunction with Saturn and Jupiter. Remember that Jupiter and Saturn are getting closer and closer to each other in the sky, and that on the evenings of December 20th and 21st will appear in the evening sky to the unaided eye as a single object. Telescopes with low magnification on Jupiter and Saturn will be able to see them in the same field of view at the same time. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. And the few moments are up. Slide number 5. I've had some questions about what you can see through a telescope on those nights on December the 20th and 21st. So if you're looking at the video feed for Skynet, here's a zoomed-in image of Jupiter and Saturn and their moons. The image will vary from telescope to telescope. It depends on the size of the telescope, the magnification, the eyepiece, the field of view, and those kind of things. But on December the 20th, you would be able to see at least 4 of the Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, and the biggest moon of Saturn, Titan. So, depending on your telescope, the image could be flipped upside down or flipped left or right or both. I'm going to actually use my 20 by 80 binoculars. They're easy to transport and set up in just moments on those 2 nights. Slide number 6. On November the 25th, you can observe another conjunction of Mars and the moon. If you have a telescope, take a peek at Mars for a little bit. It's still close enough. You can still see some maybe features on Mars. Then gaze at the moon. Using a moon map, start trying to find a few of those prominent features on the moon. If you find and memorize a mountain chain or a crater or a Maria each month, then in a year you'll be just as familiar with the moon as you do your own neighborhood. Slide number 7. On November the 30th, there will be a penumbral lunar eclipse. Okay, let me explain this. There is a dark part of the Earth's shadow. We call that the umbra. The lighter part of the Earth's shadow is called the penumbra. The moon's only going to go through the lighter part of the Earth's shadow on November the 30th. So the moon enters the penumbra at 1:32 a.m. Yes, that's early morning. The mid-eclipse is about 83% of the moon. Will be inside the penumbral shadow, and it'll only be a bit dimmer. I believe that time, I don't have it written down here in front of me, but I believe it's around 3:45. The moon completely leaves the penumbra at 5:53 a.m. Central Standard Time, which ends the eclipse. So the moon's only going to get a little bit dimmer, and most people won't even notice it. Slide number 8, let's talk about meteor showers in November. There's at least 4 meteor showers you could talk about in November. Let me talk about the first 2 meteor showers. The northern toroid peaked a few days ago on November the 11th and 12th with about half a dozen meteors. But one of the best meteor showers of the entire year is the Leonids. They peak on November the 17th, just a few nights from now, November 17th and 18th, with between 10 to maybe sometimes over 400 meteors per hour. And since the moon is close to new, it'll be a great time to see those meteors, even the dim ones. But you need to be away from the city lights. We have seen unexpected meteor counts over the last 20 years of this meteor shower, and sometimes even fireballs. I remember back, I believe it was 1999, there was not a predicted increase in huge number of meteors, but we saw 40 bolide fireballs, is what they're called, in just an hour during that one. So the Leonids are pretty interesting. I always suggest camping at a state park to watch the meteors. For details about meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization at imo.net. Okay, slide number 9. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting will be virtual just 6 days from now on Friday, November the 20th at 7:30 p.m. The guest speakers will be Dr. Olenek and Dr. Arthur Sweeney from the University of Dallas. I've known these two gentlemen for a couple of decades. They've been involved in all sorts of different things. TASC club members will receive an email, a link, sometime in the next few days in advance of the meeting. I have no idea when TASC is going to resume face-to-face meetings, nor do I know when TASC will resume having public observing sessions, but I hope it'll be soon. Check their website out, texasastro.org, for update information and details about the things I mentioned and much more. I had somebody recently ask me how to pick out a telescope for someone. Well, I always suggest buying binoculars first. And buying a telescope and binocular choices are all on that website, texasastro.org. Okay, slide number 10. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or maybe you have just a general astronomy question. I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question. Okay, hearing nothing. I want to welcome the students from Dallas College at Brookhaven. That sounds like they're piled up on YouTube. That's wonderful. Make sure that I believe this is the last week for Brookhaven students to be joining us. Students, just remember that you need to fill out that form within the next 48 hours for stargazing class credit. Okay, so slide number 11. As the moon waned over the first half of November, so do these words. And this segment of Skynet: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. We need that. Until next week, keep looking up so that you know what's up. This is Chaz, KF5JHA, back to our net world control.
All right, thank you, Chaz. And remember the night that you couldn't do the net, I gave all your students an A, so it's in your grading book. So make sure they all get A's. I think everybody that's here was there that night. So this is KE5ICX. I'm Net Control for tonight's Skynet, also World Control. Of course, that usually happens after 10:30, but it doesn't matter. Okay, next up we have space exploration and space history. Brenda, WB50ZL, has responsibilities this evening. So, Brenda, please go ahead with your announcements from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is WB50ZL. First, space exploration news. A cable recently snapped at the Arecibo Observatory for Puerto Rico, making this the second since instance this year at the facility. The observatory is home to a massive radio telescope dish that broadcasts the Arecibo message out into space in 1974 to hopefully reach intelligent alien life. Arecibo Observatory staff are evaluating the situation and said they hope to have more to share soon about the damage. And Earth may have captured a 60s era rocket booster. Looks like, in 1966, NASA launched Surveyor 2 to the moon. Now its rocket booster has apparently returned to near-Earth space. Earth has captured a tiny object from its orbit around the sun and will keep it as a temporary satellite for a few months before it escapes back to a solar orbit. But the object is likely not an asteroid. It's probably the Centaur upper stage rocket booster that helped lift NASA's ill-fated Surveyor 2 spacecraft toward the moon in 1966. Astronaut birthdays. Today, Fred Hayes. He was born in 1933. He flew on Apollo 13, and he also flew the shuttle approach land tests. Dale Gardner. He was born on November 8th, 1948, and he flew on 2 shuttle missions. Gregory Wiseman, November 11th, 1975. He flew on Soyuz TMA-13M. Ronald Evans. He was born on November 10th, 1933, and he flew on Apollo 17. Then November 14th, Ed White was born in 1930. He died in the Apollo 1 fire, and he also flew on Gemini 4 and was the first American astronaut to make to do a moonwalk. This week in space history, November 14th, 1969, Apollo 12 launches to the moon. It was 51 years ago today, and Apollo 12 launched to the moon successfully, but it wasn't without a little drama. The weather that day at Cape Canaveral in Florida was overcast with light rain and winds, but at 11:22 a.m. EST, the spacecraft carrying astronauts Pete Conrad, Dick Gordon, and Alan Bean blasted off into the clouds. 37 seconds into launch, all hell broke loose. What the hell was that? Asked Gordon. 20 seconds of confusion ensued. Then another disturbance occurred. Okay, we just lost the platform, gang reported. Conrad, I don't know what happened here. We had everything in the world drop out. The crew and mission control didn't know what had happened, and only later determined that the Saturn V rocket had been struck by lightning twice. Were it not for flight controller John Aaron, the mission might have been aborted. Aaron may be remembered more for being instrumental in helping to save Apollo 13, but the part he played in Apollo 12 was just as crucial. When he saw the unusual telemetry readings from Apollo 12, he remembered a flight simulation that took place about a year earlier where similar telemetry showed up. He recalled the simulated anomaly concerning an obscure system called Signal Conditioning Equipment, that's SCE, and remembered normal readings were restored by putting the SCE on its auxiliary setting, which meant that it would run even under low voltage conditions. So when he quickly called out the recommendation, flight, try SCE to AUX. Most of his mission control colleagues had no idea what he was talking about. Both the flight director and Capcom asked him to repeat the recommendation. Pete Conrad's response was something like, "What the hell is that?" Fortunately, Alan Bean was familiar with the location of the SCE switch inside the capsule, flipped it to auxiliary. telemetry was immediately restored, allowing the mission to continue. This was just one instance that earned Aaron the compliment of being called a steely-eyed missile man, the absolute highest of NASA compliments. And even today, among us geeks, the phrase SCE to AUX used to describe a situation where one narrowly averts a catastrophe by coming up with an ingenious plan. And if you're looking at the stream, you will see that Tom has his SCE to AUX shirt on. So go take a look at that if you can. And today, November 14th, is the anniversary of Voyager 1's approach to Saturn. Now, Voyager is the most distant spacecraft from Earth, more than 14 billion miles away and continuing on its journey out of our solar system. 40 years ago, it made its closest approach to Saturn, although it was not the first to explore the giant ringed planet, as the Pioneer 11 spacecraft completed the first flyby in 1979. Voyager carried sophisticated instruments to conduct more in-depth investigations. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California managed the two Voyager spacecraft launched in 1977 to explore Jupiter and Saturn. Voyager 2 went on to investigate Uranus and Neptune as well, taking advantage of a rare planetary alignment that occurs once every 175 years that enables a spacecraft to use the gravity of one planet to redirect it to the next. Lastly, on this date, 1971, Mariner 9 became the first spacecraft to orbit another planet. It transmitted over 7,000 images of Mars back to Earth, including this one featuring the Nergal Vallis. That's all I got. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. And this is KE5ICX and Net Control for tonight's Skynet. I'll take additional check-ins now. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WV4MFI, Ted Dallas, low power.
All right, very good. I've got WB4MFI. That is Ted in Dallas, low power. One of our regular check-ins. All right, let's move to the next section. Boy, we're running early tonight, but that's okay. I don't mind. Let's go back to Chaz. Chaz, get away from the refrigerator. Come back. It's time for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So KF5 from KF5JHA from KE5ICX. You're back with another segment.
Everyone out there must think I'm either really thirsty or I'm really hungry, going to the fridge all the time. JJ, I'm sorry, I got your orange juice out of the refrigerator, but I already drank it, sorry. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of a silent key, Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen from Texas throughout the year, out of the total 88 constellations, Miss Carolyn's covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued the tradition of having a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Pegasus, the winged horse. Hey, you've seen that thing flying in downtown Dallas, haven't you? I hope so. Let me refresh you with the myths surrounding Pegasus. Last week we talked about Cepheus. Cepheus is the king and Cassiopeia is the queen. Cepheus' wife, Cassiopeia, was a very vain woman. She once boasted that either she or her daughters were more beautiful than the Nereids. Those are sea nymphs, one of which was the wife of the sea god Poseidon. With an angry sea god, he sent a sea monster. That was Cetus, to ravage the coast of Cepheus' land. Cepheus turned on to an oracle to get advice on how to prevent the utter disaster, and the oracle told him that the only way to appease Poseidon was to sacrifice his daughter Andromeda to the monster. Desperate, Cepheus and Cassiopeia did this, leaving their daughter chained to a rock for Cetus, the sea monster, to find. And wait, the hero, Perseus, came flying in on Pegasus, the winged horse, there we go, found the princess first before the sea monster, rescued her and killed the monster, and later he married Andromeda. So, wow, this flying horse, Pegasus, is all about this, isn't it? It's embedded in the story. All those characters are constellations in the sky. They didn't have TV, Saturday night football to watch and whatnot, so they just used their imaginations in the sky with these stories. My slide number 13, sir. M15 is a globular cluster located about 4 degrees from Enif. Enif is the nose of Pegasus. That's the star that's representing the nose. M15 is believed to be about 30,000 light years in distance. It shines at around magnitude 6.3, which makes it bright enough and for people, even with very sharp eyes away from the city lights, to maybe even see it without any optical aid. I easily find it for our astronomy students on Brookhaven campus, at least when we used to be able to do observing. Walter Scott Houston of Deep Sky Wonders fame wrote that one way to improve the chances of seeing it without optical aid is to look through a long cardboard tube painted black on the inside. This will cut down on the often unappreciated flood of sky brightness and improve your magnitude limit. Wow. Of course, M15 is an easy binocular object, and it looks like a fuzzy star. A lot of people don't know this. Slide number 14, NGC1 and NGC2, that stands for New General Catalog. The first two objects are in the constellation of Pegasus. David Hutchinson and his TASS article in the Spectrum, Spectrum is the newsletter for the Texas Astronomical Society. He writes, many amateur astronomers know what M1 is, which is the Crab Nebula, and Taurus, the Bull, but fewer know where NGC1 is located. Yes, and along with NGC2, it's in Pegasus. Of the two galaxies, NGC1 is the brighter at a magnitude 12.9. That's not very bright, by the way. NGC2 is much dimmer at a magnitude 14.2. That's even fainter. The two galaxies appear very close together in the sky and may be observed in the same field of view if you have a large enough telescope gathering enough light. Both of them are spiral galaxies. NGC2 is so dim that David Hutchinson writes that he had to use averted vision to see it even with a 24-inch Lone Star Observatory telescope. Wow. 24-inch, has a hard time seeing that one? That's faint. Slide number 15, NGC 7331 is a spiral galaxy. It's a nice spiral galaxy. It is shown to be a beautiful object in photographs. It is viewed obliquely, tilted about 22 degrees from edge-on. Burnham's Celestial Handbook states that NGC 7331 is a galaxy whose photograph is often used in astronomy textbooks to illustrate the probable appearance of our own Milky Way system if it was seen in intergalactic space. Well, here's a caveat to this. Despite the fact that these days, now we know that the Milky Way nucleus has a central bar, so it's a barred spiral, and NGC 7331 is not. David Hutchinson writes that in his Spectrum article that NGC 7331 is still referred to as our twin galaxy, the Milky Way, by many astronomers. NGC 7331 and its nearby companions are often called the Deerlick group. And if you use the software Stellarium and zoom in on it, it says Deerlick group for this group of galaxies. Interesting. Slide number 16, Stephen, the Stephens Quintet, NGC 7317, 7318A, 7318B, NGC 7319, and NGC 7320. That's 5 of them. Stephens Quintet is a faint group of galaxies that is difficult in smaller telescopes. Dave Hutchinson notes that they were easy to see in the 24-inch Lone Star Observatory telescope. Stephen James O'Meara notes that the radio telescope observations show that there may be some interaction between the previous galaxy I talked about, NGC 7331, and at least one member of Stephens Quintet. O'Meara also notes, now take notice, you people out there that are already celebrating Christmas, Stephen's Quintet is also famous for another heavenly way. It was used in the opening sequence of the known, very well-known, 1946 film, It's a Wonderful Life. That space background with galaxies talking to each other, that's Stephens Quintet. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects than the constellation of Pegasus, the winged doors. I've just given you a few samplings of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60, now approaching 70 observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 of those different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. And slide number 18, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Pegasus, the Winged Horse. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words that I've borrowed, stolen about these deep sky objects that I've used tonight. I've also used the website constellation-guide.com for some information. Next week, the constellations will be 2, Sculptor, which is a sculptor's workshop, and Phoenix, a very special bird. So it's back to you, Net Control. Thank you so much. This is KF5JHA.
Well, thank you, Chaz, and it's always a pleasure to listen to Miss Constellation's Constellation of the Week. And by the way, you don't have to look at the stars all the time. You can actually watch the 1981 Clash of the Titans with all of our favorite people. Harry Hamlin, remember L.A. Law? I think he was in that thing. Had Laurence Olivier as Zeus, and Harry Hamlin, of course, plays Perseus. And there's a mechanical Pegasus horse with stop action. Burgess Meredith in it as Ammon. Hey, who needs sky stuff when you can watch a classic movie from 1981? That's it. June 12th, in fact, is when it came out. How do I know that? I can Google. But it's a wonderful movie with the mechanical owl. I saw the mechanical owl. I don't know whether there's a star object for it or not, but I did see it up in Oklahoma City. I drove all the way up there just to see the mechanical owl several years ago. All right. Oh, I forgot to put in launches that were successful this week, but that's okay. Let me do space launches for the week. That's me. This information I get from 2 locations, spacecoastlaunches.com, go figure, right, and spaceflightnow.com. That's my favorite because it gives launches all through the world. So this week we got the Falcon 9 Crew-1 we talked about with the astronauts. Crew Dragon will return, let's see, to a splashdown at sea when it returns 6 months from now. No date is given. November 15th, 16th, this is because it's on the other side of the world, the Electron Return to Sender is the name of the rocket or the mission. This is from Launch Complex 1 in the Hia Peninsula in New Zealand. The Rocket Lab Electron will launch 30 small satellites and payloads for a range of customers, including Tricep, Unseen Labs, Swarm Technologies, T. Pulina, Atea, that's Maori, by the way, in case you didn't know, Auckland Space Institute, and the Gabby Newell co-founder of the global gaming software company Valve. Rocket Lab will also try to attempt to recover the Electron rocket's first stage by parachute for the first time. I believe they're going to be using a helicopter for that. November 16th and 17th, we have a Arianespace Vega rocket, designated VV-17, will launch from a SailSat Ingenio Earth observation satellite. This is from French Guiana, and the Taranis scientific research satellite for Spanish and French customers. The SailSat Ingenio Earth imaging satellite is managed by the Spanish Center for Development of Industry Technology, an arm of the Spanish government in partnership with the European Space Agency. Airbus Defense and Space built the SailSat Ingenio spacecraft. The Taranis spacecraft, developed by the French Space Agency, CNES, will study the transfers of energy between the Earth atmosphere and the space environment occurring above thunderstorms. On November 18th, we have another Falcon 9 launch. This is from Cape Canaveral SLC-40. The actual time is yet to be determined. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch a classified spacecraft, a payload for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. The mission is designated Enroll 108. First stage booster is expected to attempt a return to the launch site landing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Still going, folks. November 21st, Falcon 9 Sentinel-6 will launch. This is from SLC-4E, Vandenberg Air Force Base in Really? This is news to me. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch a Sentinel-6A or Jason CSA satellite. The satellite was also named Sentinel-6 Michael Frelich in honor of the late director of NASA's Earth Science Division. The satellite is a joint mission between the European Space Agency, NASA, NOAA, CNES, and the EMU-ESAT to continue the sea level data record previously collected by the Jason series of satellites. Sentinel-6A, built by Airbus Defense and Space, and Thales Alenia Space in Europe, will also join the European Commission's Copernicus Earth Observation Satellite Network. Oh no, just in case you wanted to know, another Falcon 9. This one from also Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral. The SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch an SXM-7 satellite for Sirius XM. The satellite will replace XM-3 satellite in Sirius's fleet, providing satellite radio programming to consumers across North America. SXM-7 was built by Maxar Technologies and features a large unfurlable S-band reflector to broadcast radio signals to users on the ground. A Delta IV Heavy, the Enroll 44, will launch from Space Launch Complex 37B at Cape Canaveral. The United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket will launch classified satellite kit cargo for the U.S. Reconnaissance Office. The largest of the Delta IV family, the Heavy version, features 3 Common Core boosters mounted together to form a triple body rocket. Also in November, oh look, another Falcon 9, Starlink V1.0L15 will launch from Cape Canaveral SLC-40 and will launch a 16th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network. The mission is designated V1.0-L15. Then on November 24th, a Soyuz launch from Poliset Cosmodrome in Russia. a Russian government Soyuz rocket will launch 3 GONET-M communication satellites and a cluster of international rideshare payloads. The rocket will fly on a Soyuz 2.1B configuration with a Fregat upper stage. We also have here, oh boy, hold on, there's so much in here. I didn't realize it, but let me give you a couple more and then I'll stop because this goes on and on. November, Long March 5, Xiang E5, which will launch from Wenchang, China. A Chinese Long March 5 rocket will launch Chang'e's 5 mission to return samples from the moon. It is the first lunar sample return mission attempted since 1976. All right, I'm going to read one more. Good God, there's so many missions. The next one is fourth quarter. This one doesn't have a date yet. Electron and STP-27RM launch complex from Wallops Island, Virginia. A Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch on its first mission from a new launch pad at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport at Wallops Island, Virginia. The launch customer is the U.S. Air Force, and the mission will launch an experimental mission for the Space Test Program called Monolith with a space weather instrument. The Monolith mission will demonstrate the ability of small satellites to support large aperture payloads. Now, you got to remember, this is the U.S. Air Force, so it's probably something else, but you never know. All right, I will go into the others here. There are many more listed here. I had no idea there were so many launches in November, but they are there. So I'm going to stop now because we're back on target as time goes. Stay on target, red leader. Next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. She has a recent astronomical discoveries for this evening. So Brenda, go ahead from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. The article tonight is entitled History of Temperature Changes in the Universe Revealed. How hot is the universe today? How hot was it before? A new study by an international team of researchers, including members of the Cobley Institute for the Physics and Mathematics of the Universe, Cobley IPMU, suggests that the mean temperature of gas in large structures of the universe has increased about 3 times in the last 8 billion years to reach about 2 million Kelvin today. The large-scale structure of the universe refers to the global pattern of how galaxies and galaxy clusters are distributed in space. This cosmic net formed from tiny irregularities in the matter distribution in the early universe, which were amplified through gravitational attraction. As the universe evolves, gravity puts dark matter and gas in space together into galaxies and clusters of galaxies, says Yi-Quan Chang, the lead author of the study, and a research fellow at the Ohio State University Center for Cosmology and Astroparticle Physics. The drag is violent, so violent that more and more gas is shocked and heated up. The heated gas can then be used to measure the mean temperature of the universe over cosmic time. In particular, the researchers use the so-called Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect, named after Rashid Sunyaev, Director Emeritus at the Max Planck Institute for Astrophysics, and Soviet-era physicist Yakov Zeldovich, who first predicted this phenomenon theoretically. This effect arises when low-energy photons of the cosmic microwave background radiation are scattered by hot electrons in the large-scale structure of the universe. The scattering transfers energy from electrons to photons, making the hot electron gas visible. The intensity of the Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect is proportional to the thermal pressure of the gas, which in turn is proportional to the temperature of electrons. While this measurement is straightforward in principle, collecting the necessary data was a major undertaking. The study, which has been published in the Astrophysical Journal, was done in a collaboration of researchers at the Kavli IPMU, the Ohio State University and Johns Hopkins University, and the Max Planck Institute for Astrophysics. The researchers used data collected by two observatories, the Planck satellite and the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, SDSS. Planck is the European Space Agency mission which measured the cosmic microwave background radiation. SDSS collected detailed images and light spectra of galaxies. Combining the two data sets, the scientists were able to measure the amount of thermal pressure around the locations of galaxies and clusters of galaxies. It took astronomers more than 15 years to collect the necessary data using a telescope on the ground and one in space, said Bryce Menard, who led the analysis from China. Menard, who has been a visiting scientist at the Kavli IPMU since 2011, added, on the analysis side, our team spent 4 years developing the algorithms necessary to extract the signal from these data. What's more, interpretation of the data required a physical model, which was provided by Raju Makia, a research fellow at the Kavli IPMU. Combining the latest data with the state-of-the-art theoretical model, we were able to reveal how the temperature of the universe evolved and how it was linked to formation of the large-scale structure of the universe, Makia said. The next goal is to understand details of the physics of thermal and non-thermal phenomena. Chang from the Ohio State University added, our new measurement provides a direct combination of the seminal work by Jim Peebles, the 2019 Nobel laureate in physics, who laid out the theory of the emergence of large-scale structure of the universe. The study determined that about 8 billion years ago, at a redshift Z equals 1, the mean electron temperature was some 700,000 Kelvin, rising to about 2 million Kelvin today. Furthermore, the scientists determined that its evolution is almost entirely driven by the growth of structures as gas is shock heated and collapsing large-scale structures. Back in 2000, Aijiro Komatsu, the principal investigator at the Kavli IPMU and director of the Department of Physical Cosmology at the Max Planck Institute for Astrophysics, was also involved in a previous effort to calculate how the temperature of the universe evolved. For 20 years, we've been studying how to measure this using the Sunyaev-Sildovich effect, he remembered. We have now finally measured the temperature of the universe, not only thanks to the remarkable progress in observational data, but also due to the dedicated efforts of brilliant young scientists such as Yi-Kwan Chang and Raju Makia. This is very satisfying, Komatsu added. That's it. Back to net, WV5OZL.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. And this is KE5ICX. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Ashley. I got you in there. Over from, I believe, over in Brookhaven. She says she's in North Lake, so I got you checked in. I'll take additional check-ins. Anyone who would like to join us, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Alright, that's okay. Let's see here. Let me give you visible satellite passes over the next couple of days. We have the International Space Station is always a great target. You can see it easily in the sky. In fact, some pilots have seen it and thought it was an aircraft flying overhead because it's so bright. But let me give you a couple of good ones. We got November 18th, minus 3.8 magnitude at 6:47 our time. It reached its highest point at 1851 at 79 degrees, and it'll fall into shadow at 1851.52. So it doesn't quite make a full transit, but it's pretty close. We have a second one on November 19th. That's very high. Minus 3.4 magnitude, 1800 or 6 o'clock our time. It reached its highest point in the south-southwest at 1803, at 51 degrees, and fall at 1806 in the east-northeast. Next up is the secret Air Force or Space Force X-37B, the winged space plane that stays up in space now 2 and 3 years at a time. This is, I think, mission number 4, if I'm remembering this correctly. It has a fairly decent pass. Now remember, too, because of the irregularity of the thing, it is a space plane. It's dark on the bottom and very bright on top. The orientation matters, and so your magnitudes are going to be approximate, whatever I give you. We have on November 16th, it's one good pass. That's a 0.9 magnitude at 5:59 a.m. It'll reach its highest point at 6 o'clock, and then it'll fall at 6:03 to the southeast. And then finally, Envisat, which is a polar satellite. There are several, 3, actually I've got 3 good passes. November 17th, it's a 3.0 magnitude, so it's a little, not as bright. You may have some trouble seeing it, but if it's moving in the sky, you'll know that it is that. It's 6:24 a.m. out of the north. It'll reach its highest point at directly overhead at 6:29:42 out of the west-northwest. It'll fall to the south-southwest, so it's due north to almost due south, not quite, and it falls at 6:34. We have a November 20th. It has 2 passes, but the really good one is the first one at 6:13 a.m. reaches its highest point at 6:18 at 74 degrees in the east-southeast and falls south at 6:23. And then finally, November 22nd, we have 3.4 magnitude. Hopefully you can see it. This is in the afternoon, evening at 17:48. So let's see, 5:48. I think you can see it okay. It'll be at sunset. 17:53, it'll reach its highest point out of the west-southwest, and it'll fall at 17:58 at 10 degrees at the north-northwest. So those should be pretty good. I give these out. I've never seen the Envisat, and I'd really like to give it a shot. I think it would be quite interesting. All right, we have reached all of our regular segments tonight. We have astronomical Q&A. We've got about 8 minutes. Does anybody have any questions they would like to bring to the net? We have somebody out there I know checked in who can answer some question, probably truthfully and accurately. Does anybody have any questions, anything they want to ask? This could be about astronomy, it could be about telescopes, could it be about the space program, could be anything that maybe you weren't sure about that you would like an answer to. Please come now with your call sign. All right, well, nothing, and I'm going to make a comment, something that I realized I was dusting my bookshelf the other day, and I found my Walt Cunningham signed copy of the Apollo 7 APSHE book mission report. These were books that came out in the 1990s and 2000s that took a lot of the material that NASA had at the time and put it in a book form. It's quite interesting. Now all of that is available online directly. You can get the actual mission reports, and they're hundreds of pages long. But one of the things I found interesting about the Apollo 7 one was the way that the S-4B, the second stage on the Saturn 1B, and the third stage on the Apollo Saturn V, they were different, but rather interesting in how they worked, and that is simply the way that the lunar module adapter would open, which is that area that would release the command and service module, was different. On the S4B for Earth orbit, the two-stage, and the third stage used actually blasted the thing away, which is quite fascinating. And on the Apollo 7 mission and all of the Saturn 1B missions, they use a cabling system that literally pulls it back, whereas they use an explosive bolt system on the S4B destined for the moon. Why? Very simple. On those Saturn V missions, you're also carrying the lunar module, whereas on the Saturn 1B Earth orbital, you only have one spacecraft. You have the command service module. So I'm not sure, but, and I should ask my friend that was, well, not my friend, but an acquaintance that I met. I actually accidentally ran into the guy that actually created these two systems. He lives in Oklahoma City. No, he lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where he lives, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he's a docent at the Tulsa Air and Space Museum up there, and he was the program manager on that. But he said, if I remember, I have to go by memory on this one. I think he said they changed the system to accommodate the lunar module, which makes sense because, well, that's what they did. But I didn't ask him specifically about the fact that they went back to the cabling system on the Earth orbital missions. But that kind of makes sense, too. You would have that for that type of S4B. Now, one other thing about the S4B, which was in order to save time and expenses, and I mentioned that it was the second stage on an Earth orbital mission and a third stage on the Saturn V system, they were different. The S4B for the Earth orbital missions, the engine was designed to, and it was what was called a J2 engine, was designed to get it into Earth orbit. It would fire once continuously until it reached Earth orbit and stopped firing. After that, it was done. Whereas on the Apollo missions to the moon, they had to refire those engines while in Earth orbit. They do 2 orbits around the Earth, and then check out all systems, and then head for the moon. If they were go for TLI, translunar injection. So the spacecraft had to the engine had to fire multiple times, which in space is not a trivial thing. So it involves some changes in the Illich rockets and how it fired and all of that. And if you ever look, I'll tell you this one final thing since I got a little bit of time. There's a classic film, you've seen it, where an S4B is exiting the stage below it. That is obviously a Saturn 1B. And it was an unmanned mission, I forget, maybe Apollo 5. I think it might have been Apollo 5. But you'll see there's 3 little trailing contrails you'll see coming out of it, and they're all equally dispersed. That was the Earth orbital type. On the lunar missions, they had just 2, but they were bigger. They were more able to fire. And the idea is that when you're using these would help to cause through acceleration, the fuel to actually get into the mixing area between the oxidizer and the fuel. Because it's weightless, everything's floating around in bubbles. You know, they're not doing anything. So they had to use these small rockets with helium to go ahead and force those smaller engines to start, which then allowed the larger engines to start later on. This is kind of a fascinating thing if you go and look at it. You'll see it all over the Saturn V. You'll see it on the Saturn 1B, and even the shuttle had some examples of that. All of that was just to Earth orbit. All right, well, I wasted your time, and now I'm going to ask for any final check-ins. Anybody else want to check in? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
is K5ANE, Kane in Richardson, Texas.
All right, very good. I've got K5ANE.
Operational, and all my circuits are functioning.
Make sure that link didn't come on. Kane over in Richardson. So some of the guys coming in for the next net are checking in, but I got you checked in. You're number 32 this evening. All right, I think it's time to say so long. So this is KE5ICX. Tonight we had 32 people who checked in various means. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook, Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams. There's lots of them. Video archives and other useful internet resources by going to the club website, w5fc.org, inclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:30, right on the dot. We'll see you again, and we're going to return the repeater to normal amateur use for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and discuss the Afterglow movie, which is The Warriors from 1978, which is really 1990, the future. That's 78. It's really when the movie came out. We'll see you then. Come back in 5. This is KE5ICX. Clear for now. from KE5ICX.
Yes, I am, but I don't think I'm quite ready to be net control tonight. I'm not quite set up out here yet.
You read my mind. How could you do that? Okay, fine. That's okay. No problemo. Who wants to be net control tonight? Anybody? Anybody at all? Bueller? Bueller?
The world needs more alerts.
Michael! My parlor. You want to do the net tonight?
I can, but it'll be another one of those make it up as I go nights. You know, the last one was kind of like, That's always the best.
That's what I always do, WB50ZL.
I think that, you know, Kane was saying he wanted to make it up as he went. I don't even have pen and paper at my location right now. Wait, you're supposed to have paper and what? What kind of madness is this?
That's all awesome. Okay, Michael, you got it, buddy. You'll do a great job. We're all counting on you. Or how's that line go? I forget. Yeah, that.
Oh, y'all are in a lot of trouble if you're counting on me in that case. Fine. I'll do something. Strangely enough, I was, you know, just kind of looking for things to say about the movie because I kind of figured I might get suckered into this.
We're all counting on you, Michael.
And then once again, y'all are in trouble. Y'all are in a lot of trouble. Okay, fine. Hear ye, etc., and things like that. Gather around your nice, warm radio on this cold, how warm out? 70? Never mind. Okay, yeah, so turn on a fan and open a window and get ready to be confused as I was watching this movie that somebody, probably Brenda, because she picks the real stinkers, and I just spent the entire night last night after Tom went to sleep or something going, why are we watching this again? And also thinking, I've seen this. Have I seen this? I haven't seen it. I've seen this. Wait, have I seen this? I've seen this. Yeah, I don't remember when I saw it. Probably in 1979, but yeah, I've seen it before. It was the clanking bottles at the end that, you know, it's like, yes, I need, you know, I remember that. So yeah, I'm not sure how long it took me to forget it that I'd seen it back then, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to forget that I saw it this time, but I'll work on it. So in case you're wondering, this is the Afterglow Movie Net, and I'm making this up as I go. So, you know, if I forget anything, well, somebody will probably give me a bad time about it and remind me. So anyway, you know, every week we get together and we watch a movie, and I try to ignore what Tom is doing over on the video stream, but, you know, y'all should watch that because he's kind of goof. And frequently very entertaining. Sometimes he just gets really bored and just starts showing us all his various collections. Anyway, somebody, probably Brenda, picked up a movie that we need 5 and 4 minutes. Did I hit a button? I'm still... You're making this... Wait a minute. I think you hit the wrong button there, Tom. So anyway, so yeah, somebody picks a movie, Brenda, and sometimes it's really bad, Brenda, and sometimes it's good, Tom, and Tom tells us about it, and he makes up something that sounds entertaining and thus lulls us into a false sense of security, and we look at the movie and wonder, why am I doing this again? And this was one of those movies. I spent an hour and a half, or how long was this thing? Last night going, why am I watching this again? And it did take me a while to remember anyway, so every week he sends out this note to his closest victims, friends, on his email list, and also puts it on Facebook, which is Afterglow Movie, which is 2 words, so Afterglow is 1 word, movie is another word. Anyway, and then he sends out an email, and if you're not on the email list of victims, you should be, so that we don't suffer alone. Send him an email, ke5icx@yahoo.com. I'm not sure why he hasn't moved into the 20th century with email, but maybe one of these days. Anyway, this week's movie, I'm glad you asked, I think, is The Warriors from 1979. Yeah, that's what it says on the screen. And I was looking around on the internet, and I found something that said 15 things to look for the next time you watch The Warriors. I'm like, really? That many? Okay. But it says, and I'll start, and I'll probably pepper other bits of it through the rest of the net. It turns out that people really, really can dig The Warriors. Though at the time of its release, the low-budget 1979 action movie was mostly known for inspiring a string of vandalism and violent acts. It has gathered a fiendish cult of devotion over the years. Fans frequently quote the lingo of its young New York street gang members. Warriors come out to play, and the actors who have played the film's titular crew reunited on the city's subways in 2015 to breathless reactions. Who knew? Whether you're already indoctrinated in the ways of the Warriors or you've yet to experience the movie. Apparently my radio doesn't like me to talk that long, but that's okay. Whether you're already indoctrinated in the ways of the Warriors or you've yet to experience the movie's fantastical thrills, here are some interesting facts and moments to keep in mind while watching. I'm not going to tell you all those right now. So that's pretty much, nothing about the movie. But, if you haven't watched it, you're going to be really confused. Maybe not as confused as I was last night while I was watching it, but, who knows? Now that I've said all these things, I'll probably get a whole bunch of people saying, oh, I love this movie, and telling me all the things that I missed, which is cool. That's why I like the Afterglow Movie Net. In case you haven't figured it out, I'm WT9V. The FCC happy. And let's see, let's go ahead and start taking check-ins in case there's actually anybody out there besides Tom, Brenda, and Kane, who I'm not going to put down yet because you haven't told me that you're out there still. You might have gone to sleep. Anyway, come now.
Kilo Golf 5, the zombies need jobs. Frank and Flower Mound. And yes, I saw this movie.
Can you dig it?
Kilo 5, Alpha November Echo, Kane and Richardson, and yes, I saw the movie.
Oh, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom and Louisville. Yeah, I saw it.
This is WV5OZL. Brenda in DeSoto. Yes, I saw this movie. No, I did not pick it. I don't know why we go through this every week.
Because we know you did. Anybody else out there?
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Jane Weber, I saw the film.
Kilo Bravo 9, 0 Oscar Kilo. Sean, yes, I seen the film.
I'm sorry, I missed your call sign, Sean. Could you give it to me again, please?
Yeah. Kilo, Bravo, 9, Sierra, Oscar, Kilo, KB9 SOK.
Thank you, sir. And you said you did?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu India X-Ray, Joe and Wally. KG5ZIX. You heard it on the X.
Okay, but did you see the film?
No, sir, I'm sorry. I was monitoring.
All right, not a problem. Anybody else out there?
Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November, James, Oklahoma. I saw the movie.
You know, I don't know what I think it's the movie. It's affecting my brain. I know you, James, and I've talked to you lots of times here, and halfway through your call sign, my mind just went blank while you were reading it out and didn't make it from my ears to my fingers. What were the last three of your call sign again, sir?
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November.
Thank you. All right, anybody else out there? There's a lot more people than I was expecting. I thought everybody would have just, held their noses and run away. Well, okay. Well, then in that case, I'll go ahead and get started, and we'll circle back around. So, Frank, our zombie leader, what do you have to say about this movie, sir? Give us your best shot. Tell us about the plot from WT9V.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Zombies Need Jobs. All right, you boppers. Well, I guess I should tell the history of this film for me. When I was a very young teenager, my dad got a VCR, and that was at a time when very few people had them. We were, I think it was 81 or 82 or something like that. And I figured out how to record TV, which was a real novelty back then. And at 2 a.m. on Sunday nights, there was a station out of Kingston, Ontario, called CKWS, and at 2 a.m. Sunday night, they would play the most, bad movies that had swearing in them and stuff like that. And a lot of times, they just played a lot of Bruce Lee movies at that time. So I was there as a teenager recording those every time, and then one fine day, there wasn't any Bruce Lee movies or movies like that, and there was this movie and TV guide, and it said The Warriors. And I said, what the heck is this? And I read the thing, gangs in New York and blah, 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 and I said, okay, I'm sold, I'm going to record this thing. So I did. So when you're, 13 or 14 or something like that, it was a couple of years after the movie came out, and that's when KISS was really cool, and, the 70s had just ended, and, well, a lot of that stuff didn't age very well, and this movie was about the coolest movie I had ever seen when I was, 14 or something, and, and I don't think I've seen it since, so, wow, it was very nostalgic. So it's one of those movies that, unless you saw it when you were about that age at that time,
That's the only way you're going to get anything out of it is a nostalgia. If you're today, you would just go, oh my God, what is this mess? Anyway, they had a very interesting opening title sequence with the credits coming out and the way they were in 3-dimension and the subways and all that. And at the time, that kind of music, which was electronic, was very much a novelty and very new and exciting. So that was really something for the times. And the costumes of all the gangs is visually really, really stunning, and it just looks ridiculous now, just, like Kiss, And the way they filmed it was interesting. It was a heavy, heavy use of close-ups, much more than is normal. And on their cameras, they opened up the f-stop all the way, and they did almost every scene like that. And what that did is it gives a heavy depth of field effect. So whatever they're focusing on is focused, but anything that's not being focused on is completely blurred out. And almost every shot in this movie is like that. And that would be considered really bad cinematography today to just do that over and over, but it works for this movie. I guess because it's at night. They may have needed to do that just to get enough light to film, depending what kind of film they were using, because it allows more light to come in. So anyways, it's very, very interesting depth of field effects throughout the whole movie. So either you like it or it gives you a headache. And a very stylistic movie, very memorable, and a really good movie to end the 1970s. Wow. So, magic. Whole lot of magic. The movie was pretty interesting for about 30 minutes, and then it just loses steam. It pretty much, you get tired of it about the time where they have the fight with the baseball Fury guys. But, a lot of running, a lot of high stress, catching subways, and the gangs were memorable. And apparently Ronald Reagan was a huge fan of this movie, and he used to watch it at Camp David. So that's pretty interesting. Anyways, that's all I got on that. KG5ZNJ, back to you.
Thank you, Frank. And that was actually point number 4 out of the 15 interesting things. It says, yes, that really is the real Wonder Wheel. The Warriors was shot in the Big Apple almost entirely in darkness. Thus the wide open lenses, apparently. That proved tremendously difficult since it was summer and the nights didn't last long. But the cast and crew got a lot of leeway to roam the city, which was dealing with a physical crisis. Kind of like today. The Warriors showcases a metropolis that truly was teetering on the brink of chaos. So, yeah. So, K5ANE. What you got to say, sir? WT90?
So this is a very classic plot. The whole, being framed for it, and for the great crime that starts at the very beginning. Our warriors need to go and redeem themselves through this epic journey and quest, which many of them get lost along the way. But most of them end up coming through in the end and doing the right thing and making a bigger name for themselves than when they started. It's definitely an ancient myth in some ways, I think. I seem to recall reading some, really, really old stories that follow almost the exact same formula. So, you can kind of tell what's going to happen because you've seen this before, like many big box office movies are. So, in many ways, the plot wasn't too interesting to me. There were, some interesting things that happened, some interesting twists and turns, but I fully agree with Zombies Need Jobs. It just, they set up like the baseball people as this big villain that was coming through, and, you catch glimpses of them every now and then, getting ready, and then it's the big fight scene, and then it's like, well, that's not super exciting. Okay, well, that's done. I guess they just keep going. So, yeah, I don't know. The plot overall is, leaves a bit to be desired and kind of stretched on for a bit longer than it probably needed to. That's about all I've got to say for the plot. I'll save the other parts for other segments. Back to net control, this is K5ANE.
Thank you very much. Alrighty, let's see. Yeah, that was, yeah, basically, it's essentially, according to this, an urban western, all the way through until at the very end, that very westernish standoff between the good guys and the bad guys, as it were. Not a whole lot of violence toward the end, though. Alright, so that would bring us back around to Tom. T5ICX. What are you playing with over there, Tom? WT9B.
All right, I remembered I had in my closet a subway map, and this is exactly the same subway map that was in the movie. This is from the same year, 78, 79. So I'm holding it up, and I'm showing you, if everybody look carefully, look close to your radio, you'll see that they actually got stranded up here. That would be 205th Street, and they had to go all the way into the Bronx. Let's see, that's over here somewhere. And then Joe Walsh, he played the music. He was right here. And then you got, that's on the IRT. And then you got the BMT that goes up this way. And then you got the connector over here. And then you go into Queens. And then you make a right turn at the Queensboro Plaza RR7, followed by, oh, you want to talk about... So, at any rate, it is exactly the same map. Trust me on this. I know things. But I liked the movie. I don't know why. I think the way it's kind of stylistically done was fun for that period of time. I know there have been folks that have talked about the 1980s, and they love the films from that era because of the way they, handled certain aspects of film. I think in this year, 1979, a lot of films were very kind of pedestrian the way they were handled. This film did a little more than that. It gave us a nice, palette, something different for us to enjoy. It's based on a book from 1966. Which I thought was kind of interesting, and indeed they actually had gangs that were a gang that actually protected the sets because it was at night. As Michael mentioned, they were going through a fiscal crisis up in New York City, and I used to go to New York City fairly regularly, and yeah, they were at that time, and there was a lot of things about it that felt kind of creepy, slightly dangerous. I never really felt it was real dangerous because, hey, I grew up in Detroit, so it was not that big of a deal. At least stuff was open all night in New York, whereas Detroit, it closed down except for the blind pigs. But I enjoyed it. The plot is thin, I agree. It's sort of based on a Greek story where a legion had to get out of enemy territory, which is essentially the same story here. It's also based on, I believe, a comic book, which was kind of novel back then, and they just started to do that sort of thing. Superman came out, I think, a year later doing that same sort of thing. But this film started with it, and started that comic book craze thing that's been going on now for the last 40 years, 35 years, I guess. So, I don't know. I liked it. I liked it. I don't know exactly why. I think it's just kind of offbeat. We'll get into characterizations, which I think is what really makes the movie kind of work. The soundtrack was by Barry Dvorak and Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh is a ham radio guy. You've heard his stuff. He did the theme for Ham Nation. I think was it Eagles? I forget. I'm not a rock music guy, but I think he was involved with that. Of course, I can look him up on that. We'll see. So I don't know. We'll come back to it, but I kind of like the adventure, the walkabout thing that they ended up with, and I thought that was quite interesting. And I thought it moved along pretty well. Maybe it was slow paced, but I don't know. Sometimes the subway is delayed. I'll tell you more about the map because I haven't looked at this in years. There's some lost parts that got eaten on it too, mainly near Staten Island. Looks like it got hit by a gouge. All right, back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Far be it from me to disagree with our glorious leader, but that's not the same map that's in the movie. I believe the map that's in the movie is the one that was designed by Massimo Vignelli, because it's very... It doesn't have curves and things, it's all angles, which was... If you go back and look at the movie, I think that's a different... That's either an earlier or a later map, actually. At least than the one that was in the movie. Maybe it's... maybe they, were using an old map on the thing. Yeah. All right, anyway, we'll run it over to Brenda and see what she thinks about it. Is that the same map, Brenda, from WT9B?
This is WV50ZL. I watched that link that you sent me on the subways, and I'm pretty sure this map was one of the ones that they listed in there in the history of subway maps, but I couldn't tell you for sure if it was the same one in the movie. Okay, I never saw the movie before. I never even heard of it, and I had a hard time warming up to it. I couldn't find a protagonist or anybody I cared about at all, and I just wanted them to all go home and go to bed and quit fighting, which is what their mothers would tell them, right? I'm a mother. And I just didn't care for all the head bashing and fighting and running around. It just kind of isn't my cup of tea. Later on in the movie, I sort of got into it and liked some of the warriors and the girl, and could kind of see where they were coming from. Visually, it was kind of interesting, and even though I'm not much into fighting, I understand, the commentary on the state of man or something. That this is reality. This is what happens. People fight over turf on so many levels. This is a very basic level. And, so I get that. It's probably more of a guy thing. Not much into fighting or fight movies or even sports. But I could appreciate the characters' motivations and so on. So I wasn't sorry I watched it. I don't want to see it again, but I can see why this would be a cult following, or have a cult following. Did not pick this movie. Okay? Just so you all know that. Back to net, WV50ZL.
Oh, come on. We all know that when you say you didn't pick the movie, that's just your way of saying, yes, I picked the movie. So, KG5, BZWJ. Outside of Weatherford. Give us your thoughts, Jay, WT90.
This is KG5BZW. I did kind of like it, but kind of not like it. I don't know. It's like, I agree with, has all these new jobs. I think that was the first guy. I'm already forgetting who said what, but the plot kind of stalls in the middle. I don't know. There's just so much about the film that remind me of some other things I've seen. I don't know if the DJ was parodying something that, or maybe I saw the DJ, like, it's very much possible I've seen some parts of the film and that might be why I'm trying to, yeah, maybe, and it's not just that, there's aspects of this film that actually reminded me of some other things I've seen. And then I realized those things that I saw were actually younger than this film, so that it could have been that this film may have influenced those things. And it's almost, I feel like the commonality is just not enough to even mention. I'm thinking of a few, I don't know, for some reason there's some like old Japanese anime, or maybe even older Japanese films that, and when I second saying old, I mean like really old. That something about this film reminds me of. But it's like, it's not, when I'm talking about these aspects, I'm kind of enjoying trying to relate to other things or not. It's like, did I really enjoy the film? I don't know how much I did. It was an interesting film to watch. I'm not sure how much I'd really recommend it to anybody. Kind of, it's like, I go from thinking it's a kind of a big waste of time to, no, there's something really, something to this. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's maybe just nostalgia. That ending music, I want to know what that's from. Was that, I never really, I tried to research that. I was like, okay, because the ending music's very famous. Is it that it's famous because of this film, or they just use famous music? I don't know. Anyway, I don't think I have anything else to say on that. The plot is really simple. I'm kind of eager to hear what others say about the character development, I guess, because it's, yeah, I mean, in some way, it's a simple plot. It's an odyssey to get home. And I mean, they go through it. Wow, I just don't know. I'm kind of like glad I saw it just for the experience of seeing it, but is it really, something worth the watch? I don't know. And I think I'll just leave it at that. KQ5VW back to that.
Alrighty. And yeah, one of the comments or points in the article I found is that Warriors is one of the more exceptional works from director Walter Hill, who earned a deserved reputation for his hard-boiled tough guy movies made with elegance. While he'll always be most famous for 48 Hours, the hit starring Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, his other features like The Driver and The Long Riders are worth seeking out. In particular, The Driver, featuring Ryan O'Neal and Bruce Dern, perfected the car chase movie long before Ryan Gosling's Drive liberally took inspiration from it. And another point that I will throw in here is that you're watching real gang members. Apparently, that big, the huge, get-together in the park, in order to pull off that sequence, the filmmakers asked real gang members to be extras. So, says it feels legit for a reason. I'm not sure I felt that, but it's okay. KB9, that's okay. Sean, what do you have for us? WT9B.
Well, I do feel this was a better movie than last week, so that's a plus. But I'm not sure by how much. I felt the movie actually had some similarities to last week's. It seemed to be a lot of running, some very slow sequences, especially there at the beginning, and between fighting gangs. And I don't feel that it really helped develop the characters in between. So yeah, it was kind of slow. About halfway through, I started to get kind of bored with it. And to kind of go talk about the plot itself, yes, it was pretty simple. I thought maybe the most interesting part of the plot was the very beginning, actually, with them talking about trying to unite the gangs under one front to take over the city. I think that might have been a more interesting movie had they followed that instead of killing the guy right off the bat. But it's one of the curious things, and I was, a young man back in the 70s, but I lived in a pretty rural area, so never had to deal with gangs. But I just wondered, here they made the comment about there was 100 different to 200 different gangs. I was just curious, was there really that many different gangs in there? So it just seemed a little extreme. And then were the gangs that vastly different from each other? Did they really dress like that? Just seems a little far-fetched. So yeah, I don't really buy on that part of the plot. But I could actually buy on the plot that somebody was trying to unite them. But once again, that didn't really go anywhere. And then and the other thing I thought was kind of odd was, they supposedly had the one gang there that had connections throughout the entire city, that had multiple gangs that worked underneath them, but yet none of them just really seem to find the warriors. And from what I understand from these large cities, usually you don't disappear easily. Usually they are interconnected and there's eyes everywhere. So it seems odd that they only actually had to battle a couple of gangs to get out. I would have thought that they'd been tracked down much easier and stopped much easier if that had really been the case. So, I thought there was a few plot holes in it, but I guess the movie was okay. Wasn't too bad. That's about all I have. Back to net control. KB9SOK.
All right, thank you very much. And let's see, Joe said he was listen only. KG5 PMN. James, what do you have to say?
This is KG5 PMN. I don't know what else to add to the movies. I've always thought watching that movie and the lack of any people around the town was kind of strange. The only very few people you saw was the one lady cop sitting on the bench, and that one couple that showed up on the subway. I don't know where they came from or who they were. It never did say anything about them, but as far as the simple plot goes, what else can I say about that? I just thought the lack of people in the outside people in the movie was strange, other than just having gang members all over the place and struggling to fight them and a bunch of long train rides. Back to the net, KG5 PMN.
And let's see if I can find something else entertaining to say before I turn it back to Frank to see what he has to say. this is, it says, a New York baseball gang makes a lot of sense. I'm not really sure how. That was kind of weird, but yeah, some people think it's good. So, Frank, what do you have to say about characterization from The Warriors, 1979, from WT9B?
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, this movie is full of memorable characters. And by the way, I bet you half you guys really like this movie and you don't want to admit it. I bet any money. So you had characters like Swan, Ajax, Cochise, Vermin, Cowboy, and Marcy. And the leader of the Rogues, he was memorable. I thought for years that, when I would remember this movie, I thought like that was Sean Penn. He just, to me, looked like him. But, I don't even know who it is. It's another actor. But the little bottle thing with the 3 bottles and asking the Warriors to come out and play, what I've heard is that him growing up when he was a kid, he had a neighbor who was an absolute terror and used to scare the heck out of them as kids. And apparently he used to do that. He used to do the 3 bottles and, have this absolutely maniacal come out and play, and it absolutely terrorized him as a kid. And when he had a chance to use it in a movie, he basically said, hey, I got this idea, and they let him do it. So that's kind of interesting. The other really memorable guy was Cyrus. When he does his Can You Dig It thing, that's used in sports stadiums all over the world nowadays. You can't go to an NHL game without them cueing that lineup, when somebody's down 3-2 or something. And apparently, I may be wrong about this, but I heard, this was one of these movies you hear about stuff, but you don't know if it's true or not. But what I had heard is he had never acted in anything in his life, and he just winged it like a guy off the street, and he never acted in anything afterwards. And that's kind of interesting, because he did a pretty good job of that one. What else can you say about the characters? Well, I heard also that Robert De Niro was supposed to be one of the characters in that movie, but he turned it down. And I also heard Tony Danza was as well, and he turned it down. I do know that the DJ, the lady who played the DJ, she got very famous after that movie. She was the host of the Carmen Sandiego kids show in the 80s, and she used to use that line in it, but she was, I can't remember what she said. She didn't say, all right, you boppers, but she said something else for the show, so it was kind of funny. And I kind of thought, watching it this time around, that she had started a ham radio net, and it was a fox hunt to find the Warriors. So that's what I was thinking. It's like she was running a net, directing all the gangs around. So I kind of had a good laugh about that. And then the guy who played Rembrandt, he's the guy with the spray can, and also the girl in the convenience store. I remember at the time, I couldn't believe it. Those 2 actors were in a kids show in the 70s called 3-2-1 Contact, and I spotted them right away. They were on a kids show and they ended up in that movie somehow. So that was pretty interesting. Anyway, that's all I have for now. KG5ZNJ, back to you.
Alrighty, Frank. Thank you very much. Now, this is actually more along, I should have said this part during plot, and it actually was the first point here, but this was based on a graphic novel. I'm going to try and pronounce some of these things. So, based on a graphic novel and an ancient Greek story. The script for Warriors was adapted from Saul Urich's graphic novel of the same name, which in turn quotes and borrows elements from Anabasis, a 7-book adventure by the ancient Greek soldier and writer Xenophon. So just know that while The Warriors may seem very time-stamped, it has its roots going back to BC times. But it's not a very faithful adaptation. After being handed Urich's novel, the director Walter Hill immediately had an idea for a fun movie. Quote, I felt very strongly that it certainly was not a very realistic book, and I wanted to make it even less so. So apparently he did that part. The warriors in the novel are actually the Coney Island Dominators, a black and Hispanic gang. In Hill's cinematic rendering, the main crew is a diverse group of white and non-white misfits. So who knew that there was that there was actually a Coney Island gang? I didn't know that. Yeah, anyway, K5A&E. Kane, what you got about characterization for the warriors from WT9V?
While most of the characters in this movie were somewhat flat and one-dimensional, I actually really did like the overall characterization of the movie, and I love the wide number of gangs with all these different styles and costumes and just kind of behaviors and the way that they all behaved. And while there weren't necessarily a lot of like interesting characters on their own, there were a lot of interesting gangs, and I thought that was, something very different from what you see in a lot of movies where, they build up all these different characters and whatnot. In this case, you're not necessarily building up individual characters, but they're building up these collectives and whatnot, and I just kind of thought that was rather interesting and very different compared to what you normally see. And let's see, what else did I think about the characters? One second. Yeah, I guess that's probably just about it. Rather flat, but at the same time also very diverse and interesting. This is K5A&E, back to net.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Going with what I was saying before about it being a graphic novel, it has a comic book style. It mentions that for a late 70s feature made on a shoestring budget, the whole the interludes where they have, drawn images that then seamlessly transition into shots of human actors. That's quite a feat for something back then with not much money. Anyway, that would bring us back around to Tom and his map. K5ICX. What you got for us this time, Mr. Tom, about characterization?
All right, thank you, Michael. Well, first off, the thing you have to know is that they got off at West 8th Street near the New York Aquarium. Now, instead of trying to, they should have taken the bus. Now it's plainly marked right there on the Brooklyn map that they could take the bus. I think it's the bus on New Listwright Avenue. Yeah, near Bensonhurst. Yeah, 88th Street. Cross over that, turn left at the Brooklyn Tunnel, and then make a right turn onto 36th Street, and they would have been able to get away from all that stuff. Instead, I think they made a right turn and ran into that gang, which is a bad idea, because I understand, very bad gangs. Who was that group, that gang that was kind of really out of shape and standing around wanting to do stuff, looking because of the territory thing going? I don't know. At any rate, what you need is a good map. That's very important. Now I have to admit, one of my favorite characters in this was indeed Cyrus, who gets killed off almost immediately because he's the target and that's how the story gets going. But from what I understand, the guy who was originally supposed to play Cyrus was a real gang member, and he disappeared shortly before the movie began, which seems to be a thing that goes on when you're in a gang. You don't last all that long. Die early, leave great corpse, I think is the line from that other guy with the leather jacket. Michael Beck, I thought, was quite good in this, playing the angst swan and through the whole thing. He was pretty interesting. He went on immediately after that in the wonderful film, and I'm sure Brenda wants to pick it again, is Xanadu, and he plays the main character in that. So Xanadu, one of the finest, one of the worst musicals ever made. second worst musical, I think. But maybe we'll do that sometime. It's got Michael Beck in it. The other characters, Rembrandt I thought was good, Cowboy was good, Cochise was good. I mean, they played kind of a stereotypical thing, I guess, but I don't know. But I also agree, I think Frank mentioned it, it might have been Kane, I didn't write down who said it, I should have probably, but the gangs are colorful and kind of interesting. It's kind of weird, you know, the baseball guys with their bats look threatening. I thought that was quite interesting. The gang down there in Brooklyn that's out of shape, they weren't as interesting. They blew up, you know, and the car got blown up, and then they had to run away. And they didn't, you know, they're an also-ran gang, you know, and even the guy said, this is terrible. So I don't know. No, I didn't mind it. What else about the characters? The DJ, Lynn Thigpen was the DJ. She redid a role as a DJ in another movie. I don't remember what it was, but she has a long and, well, an almost long and healthy career. I gotta tell you, a lot of these people died early. She died at 54 in 2003, but I hate reading this stuff, but I was looking to find where the heck she was in playing a DJ. Oh, well, I don't know, but she played a DJ, basically the same character in another movie earlier. I'm trying to go through the list here and see, but Ajax was good. I don't know. There were, yes, I know, they were two-dimensional characters and all that. I mean, beat up online, but I still enjoyed the film. I thought it was quite fun, and I thought the characters meshed well, and I thought that the story was okay. Yes, it was simplistic, I agree, and the characters don't have a lot to actually do in the film, but it was kind of fun anyway. All right, I won't go on, but my favorite character in this was Roger Hill as Cyrus. I thought he was quite good. And he died at an early age, too. He didn't last very long, but oh well. He did 3 things. Oh, he did play on a soap opera, I guess, for a while, for 3 years, so I guess he had a lot of screen time. But can you dig it? Yeah, I can. He was the best, my favorite character in the whole thing, even though he died very early in the show. KE5I6.
So I might know why you think they took the wrong turn and ran into the wrong gang there. Because while the movie said they were filming this in Van Cortlandt Park, it was actually filmed in Riverside Park, which may explain a lot. Check your map, Tom. While you're checking your map, Brenda is going to enlighten us with all sorts of fascinating things about characterization from this movie, and hopefully won't tell us who died when, because that's somebody else's job. From WT9B.
Thank you. This is WB50ZL. Well, first, I want somebody to explain to me how they just got on and off subways all night. I always thought you had to buy a ticket to get on a subway, but what do I know? We don't have those here, although I have ridden a subway, but I seem to remember paying for it. Characters, you know, it was hard to tell them apart, I'll have to say that. Swan obviously got the lion's share of close-up FaceTime, and Michael Beck's pretty good anyway. And I don't know what you're talking about, Tom, with Xanadu. I love that movie. I bought the album and kind of wore it out. Did I miss something here? Why you would criticize this movie? You know, I don't know any gang members, so I couldn't tell you if this was a real accurate portrayal of gang members or not. I don't get the motivation of being in a gang. It doesn't seem to pay very well, and you spend an inordinate amount of time in it. And, if your motivation is just to prove that you're a badder gang than the ones down the street, okay, I don't know what you can do with that. But gang life is kind of hard on people. They generally don't have longevity. These boys should have been in school. Just saying. I'm a mom, okay? They should be going to school. The girl I liked, and I kind of liked in the end how she and Swan hooked up and found something, some commonality or some kind of affection or affinity with each other. So it wasn't a real romance, but I think we could see it down the road. All right, I won't bother on WE50ZL.
So I'm glad you mentioned that part about paying for the subway. Because they might remember at the beginning of the movie, whenever they were going to the meeting, they were buying tokens and putting tokens in the turnstiles. And it says here in the page, innumerable scenes take place in the real New York City subways run by the MTA, including both underground and elevated trains. As seen on the screen, the trains did operate with tokens back then. The characters also avoid paying by jumping turnstiles, which seems perfectly acceptable when running for your life. Then it says something. Oh, yeah, speaking of the leading lady, Deborah Van Valkenburg plays the fiery Mercy. Sexy woman catches Swan's eye and joins the warriors on their journey and turns out to be as tough as boys. While she's scantily clad when we first meet her, she's later dressed in a long-sleeve jacket. That's likely because, she'll explain, Van Valkenburg broke her wrist and had to wear a cast, forcing the crew to get creative. So, there's that. Alright. DG5BBWJ. What you got for us about the characters of this fine film from WT90?
Well, I mean, this is a film all about the characters. Yes, they're very simple, but there's so many of them, and it's comments about, I don't know that the gangs are real or not. Well, no, of course they're not real. Have you ever seen a gang anywhere that has makeup on, chasing people around? Yeah, that was more to appeal to, I guess, rock culture or whatever, I think, than anything. But still, it was, there's this kind of absurdity to it, but it's kind of fun watching the absurdity to it all. I mean, just seeing each gang with their characteristic, the overalls or the I don't know, some, I think, was there a fro gang? I don't know. There's all of these kind of little, just little things that was their gang symbol, and it was just really plainly obvious what it was. I mean, I'm talking about the first 5 minutes of the film, which is kind of like, what kind of actually got me in there. So really, yeah, getting into the warriors, you got some stereotypical characters, and of course, these characters, they meet their fate kind of like you would expect them to, which I don't know how much it goes for against the movie. I don't know. You see the various gangs that they have to fight against, and
kind of interesting to me just how they were written up. Like the orphans were not even on the map, and yet, you know, they had to be overcome, and then of course, okay, there's okay, you had the baseball guys, baseball bat guys, you had the overall guys. That was pretty. That was more about the fight scene that would come after. And that's also part. You know, it might have been a pretty active fight scene, but I have to admit that was the part where I'd already gotten a little bit bored. I really want to know. There's just something about, I don't know, that middle part of that film, I just wish it could have been tweaked or something better. Just slow down and the guy picks back up. Of course, that's more about plot, but you don't really expect great character development. I mean, you have to have these characters, the warriors, how they interact with the other characters, and if there's any character development that would be of them, and I don't know, it's just well, I think I'm rambling on too much. If I have a point, I'm not quite sure what it is. Because, I guess you do have the two main, Swan and I guess her name's Mercy, and they seem alright. But I don't know. I've got run out of things to say here. I agree with a lot of the other comments about the characters. That's all I got. KG5 BZW.
Alright, so interestingly enough, that kind of leads into, comments about the different gangs. One of the amusing things is the Warriors does take a lot of humorous liberties in concocting its fictional street gangs, which seem to have free reign in a dystopian, futuristic version of New York City. One of the more eccentric tribes is a cluster of mimes in full costume. It begs a number of questions. Most importantly, how do they get anything done? All right, Sean. What you got for us, Sean? From WT19.
Yeah, not really a lot to add. I think everyone's pretty well covered. But yeah, I think Cyrus was probably the most interesting actual character. Once again, but unfortunately, like Tom said, he died early on. And then probably the second most interesting character was probably the girl. And we did learn a little bit about her, actually, and kind of what her ambitions were, so she might have been the most developed character on the show. And kind of going back to the earlier, kind of going back to the plot thing again, but I'd wondered the same thing, I think it was Tom that brought up, why didn't they take the bus? Well, I wondered, when I was watching the movie, why did they just steal a car and get out of there? I would have thought that would have been much easier, and thought they probably would have had the capabilities to do that. That kind of a plot thing there. But, back to the characters, they're pretty simple. I think somebody mentioned, maybe the gangs were kind of their own character of their own. Not a lot of characterization there, but that's all I got. Back to net control. This is KB9SOK.
Thanks, Sean. All right, KG5 PMN, James, what you have for characterization, sir? WT90.
KG5 BMN. Don't have much on characterization. The movies filmed, I've never really been a fan of the movies that filmed at night and so much darkness in them, and too many people in there to jumping around and going from one group scene to another group scene, and get too many people in there, and I kind of get lost in the characters and can't really keep track of them. I guess Swan was the kind of main character in it, and he was the only one I could really kind of keep track of. And the other thing that I kind of wondered about, the only vehicles actually you saw in the movie was that one old, looked like a probably late 50s Cadillac running around in there, and then police cars. You didn't see any other vehicles in the movie. I was talking about stealing one of them. Well, there didn't appear to be much to steal. Yeah, I can't think of much else. Send it back to the net, KG5PMN.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Well, I will mention another item from the list, and might be running out of things, but the real villains are the disco dancers. One of the more quietly powerful scenes goes by nearly wordlessly. A pack of merry partiers board the subway and, based on their ruffled attire, seem to be coming from or going to some wholesome disco dancing. They fall silent upon seeing the bruised Swan and Mercy, then leave at the next station. The audience, of course, instantly despises them. It seems like a bit of an overreaction from people on a graffiti-splattered train in then grimy New York, but the point is clear. 2 years after Saturday Night Fever, disco had reached peak saturation. And in fact, Hill has complained that Paramount hoped the Warriors would be something like the John Travolta hit. Maybe this was his quiet revenge. Anyway, back to the top. And that would be Frank. KG5, Z&J, or Zombies Need Jobs. What do the zombies have to say about anything else in this movie, Frank? Special effects or other thoughts that your crew might have? And are you a gang leader, Frank? Is that what that means? Explain this to us, Frank, from WT9B.
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, as hobbies go, if I ever would have considered being a gang member as a hobby, I'm more of a stamp collector kind of guy. So, yeah, I wouldn't have bothered with that stuff. Too much trouble. Now, as for if I had been in that situation, had I been in that gang in that situation, well, that seems pretty silly. I mean, why would you be in that situation where you have to get home and you have nothing to support you and all these people are after you? The only way they're going to know who you are is because you're wearing those vests, right? So me, I would just throw the vest out and, do the old, clothesline steal thing and get somebody else's T-shirt and make it home with my buddies. Now, of course, gang people are pretty sentimental about their colors, quote unquote, so I would have been looking for, you remember back in the day, you'd go to a bus station and they had those lockers, you'd put a coin in and you'd turn the key and you keep the key, and I'd stuff all the vests in there and lock it up, and, I'd come back for it, when things cooled down. But that's why me and Tom do all the thinking, That's all I got. KG5ZNJ, back to you.
Yeah, I was having the same thought during the movie last night. Like, why don't you turn the vests inside out, take them off, something? The bus locker, that's a good, it's a good idea. Basically what you're telling us is you were too smart to be in a gang. So, okay, I'll accept that. K5NE, Kane, what do you have? Probably final thoughts, but I don't know, special effects, other stuff, whatever, from WT9V.
it was brought up that this was a low-budget movie, and when I first started watching it, and especially the opening sequences and things like that, I was actually kind of thinking that this was a pretty decent budget movie. But then I was like, when you mentioned that it was a low-budget movie, and I really started, piecing it all together, I was like, oh yeah, actually all of this was just incredibly cheap. I mean, just have a camera and maybe rent a crane for a couple nights or whatever, and the rest of it's pretty much on the level kind of shots, and they're all super close-ups and whatnot, all on location kind of photography. They probably didn't even really build many of those sets. It's probably just a lot of oh, this looks good, I guess we'll shoot this here, scouting it around. And pretty interesting. I actually really enjoyed the cinematography of it. I know definitely it doesn't meet what we consider to be like modern movies and things of that nature, but to a certain extent that's actually one of the reasons why I kind of liked it. Is it's kind of refreshing in a way as far as the way it was shot, with all these close-ups and all of this so much like bokeh going on from the depth of field, and there's just tons and tons of that kind of a view. And style, which was probably both a mixture of stylistic choice and also, necessity, having that, wide open aperture to get the good shots at night. Even though it was, kind of low budget, I felt like everything was pretty well lit and balanced, and, things looked fairly realistic on the film as what you might think about a New York City night. Let me reset. I appreciated how like the style of everything was as far as the city. I thought it's kind of interesting seeing the city at this point in time, and they kind of try and mention that it's in the future kind of thing, a recent future, but it looks very much like what you would think New York City in the 80s would be like, and it's always just kind of interesting seeing the places that you see depicted today in movies and in current culture, and see, another viewpoint, another take, another vantage, another time, and just, really kind of see that. And, I don't know if it's accurate or inaccurate or something like that, but it's just always interesting to see something that's, both familiar and also yet very distant. I think that's probably all I had to say. Interesting cinematography and interesting location and things. Yeah, that's probably about it for me. This is K5ANE, back to net control.
Alrighty. Well, that brings us back around to Mr. Map Person. What do you have to say, Tom, about whatever? It wasn't a whole, I don't think you could really say there was much in the way of special effects in there. So, what do you got to say for it, Mr. Tom? WT90.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you for doing the net. I know you volunteered, and were very enthusiastic, and I appreciate that very much. Now, I have on the video stream, which I'm sure everybody is watching, I put up the map, and you will see on the map there is a free transfer. I have shown that, which means that while you guys thought that the gang members were getting on the train for free, there are indeed free transfers between BMT and IRT through Times Square, which I've plainly put on the screen right here. So, with that, I feel that you have improperly categorized certain gangs as not law-abiding. I can't imagine why. They're like, keep to the right when they walk on the train, like you're supposed to. They did not really beat up at those poor people in polyester from Saturday Night Live, Saturday Night Fever. I don't know, something happened there, but I don't know. Well, I've been reviewing the movie over here while you guys have been talking, and yes, I agree. One of the things that's really nice, and there are no special effects, that's true, but the lighting is great, especially when it's dark out, lighting is important. I found that out. You know, we did a video last week. You know, I do that sort of thing. And for work, we forgot to turn the lights on. That's how bad we are. But we didn't realize it until after I went, wait a minute, you can't see anything. And then I thought of this movie. You can see with all of this. And I thought, you know what? It'd be good to have a baseball bat too. You know, just to get people's attention. But overall, yeah, I don't know. Force perspectives, all good. Obviously, these are filmed on location. There's very little set stuff going on that I can see. Uh-oh, my video just went kind of... But I was just kind of looking through some of the scenes here, trying to... now it's dead, Jim. But I thought it was interesting. The gangs were kind of fun because they were like comic book. Well, it is a comic book, isn't it? But very kind of weirdish. I think one of the things that they mentioned in there that I thought was interesting, let me reset. Was that you had mixed race and groups and all that, and that's true. Which probably wouldn't have happened back then, and probably wouldn't happen today because like groups like to assimilate, and gangs are kind of that way. But even then, I don't think that would have really played well in you know, the movie. But that kind of made this, you know, I guess for the assimilation was what they have, you know, the baseball players. That was kind of crazy. And then we had whatever the group with the leotards on. That was kind of weird. There was the slackers. I don't know who they were. The ones in Brooklyn that tried to, you know, weren't very good and ran away. They didn't even dress like a gang. They kind of looked like your local guy across the street moving somebody. So I don't know. That was kind of weird. But overall, I liked the theme and the way it worked. Yes, was it crazy? Yeah, it was. But it kept me engaged. I thought it was okay. I've enjoyed this movie, and I've watched it on a number of occasions. It's not on my A list, but it's on my B and C list, and I'll watch it sometime. It's a good movie when it's raining out, you know, and you can't go outside and it's cold. So there you have it. So remember, free transfers are possible. You got to read the map. Back to net control, KE5ICS.
Thank you, Tom, for that important education about the MTA and transfers from one line to the other. Kind of like some of the train transfers on the Dallas, the DART thingamabob. Okay, Brenda, WE5OZL. Tell us how Tom is wrong, because we know you want to. WT9B.
This is WB5OZL. You mean wrong about the free transfers? I don't think so. He's got a document there that clearly shows it. And I didn't know anything about free transfers because I never lived in New York. So thank you for showing us all that information. We are now educated. So, final thoughts. Oh my, I pretty much said everything I want to say. It was different, and sometimes it's not a bad idea to watch something that's, you know, not your usual fare. Expand your horizons a bit, I guess. This is certainly different than giant ants or giant rabbits, but so you know, it makes you think. All right, I am going to quit now. WB5OZL.
All righty. That reminded me, I was going to point out to Tom, it wasn't a comic book, it was a graphic novel, which of course are comic books for grown-ups. KG5, PCWJ, final thoughts, because we're running out of time here, which is okay, but, you know, I'm surprised we stretched it this long. Go ahead, Jay, from WT9B.
KG5 VDW. I don't think there's really anything as far as cinematography-wise that hasn't been said. And I don't really have any final thoughts to contribute to everybody about the movie, other than my own personal things, which is reiterating, it was an interesting movie. Definitely, I agree. It's not the A-list material, but it was one of those things. If you're, well, I've already said that. The whole theme of Afterglow movie being is like films you never watch, but yeah, this is definitely one of those films I never would. I don't know if I'd ever would have watched it. Unless it was back in the day when we had the crazy random midday movies or whatever, but I'm young, so I know I don't have much to say if my next actually is young, so I think I'll head to the next person, KG5 BZW.
Alrighty. So, I was thinking something. Oh, yeah, no, that's something else. I'll think of it in a minute. In the meantime, Sean, KB9, that's okay. What do you have to say, sir?
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add there. Yeah, it was interesting filming and lighting. Maybe that was the best part of the whole movie. And the movie was just, it was okay. Something I probably won't watch again, but it was okay. And I actually did vaguely remember when I started watching it, seeing it years and years ago, which was kind of strange. But I'll just take this point. I'd just like to thank everyone that makes this net possible. It is a very unique net, and I enjoy it. Wish I had discovered it sooner. Just started listening the last 6 or 7 weeks. But anyway, appreciate it. And back to net control. This is KB9SOK.
Alrighty, thank you very much. And if you really want to see what, or hear what you missed the last few weeks, you can go to YouTube and look for Dark Skynet, DARC space Skynet, because this net and all of the previous ones, and going back I don't know how many years, are all on YouTube. So, if you want to pull up a chair and listen to the nets from the past, you can do that. I went back and watched/listened to my first escapade doing this whole NCS thing last year in September. I went, wow, it's been that long? Must be crazy. KG5 PMS. I remember what I was going to say. There apparently is a ultimate director's cut of this movie, but according to the people on Amazon, you shouldn't buy it because it has these jarring comic book-like transitions. Apparently these reviews are from people that don't know anything about the movie at all. Anyway, KG5, PMN, James. Final thoughts. Bring us home, James.
This is KG5 PMN. The final thoughts. Granted, this movie didn't have any of the usual special effects in it like you would associate with a science fiction movie. However, just for a thought, I just wondered if the choreography for all the fight scenes, could you consider them special effects? Making sure nobody actually got really, I guess, hopefully hurt in them, and with all the baseball bats swinging and everything else going around, and I don't know if you consider that special effects or not. Back to the net, KG5 PMN.
Now I'll leave that to somebody more knowledgeable to make the determination. But I did want to add a final tidbit. This apparently estimated had a budget of about $4 million in, late 1970s money. It was released on February 9th, 1979. So I guess it was 78, somewhere in there was when it was filmed. And apparently the gross was like $22 million, which is a really good return on the investment. So, yeah, not bad. Okay, so, Mr. Tom, what do we have for next week? 'Cause I couldn't be bothered to look it up or try and find it. Facebook and I just don't get along, so tell me it's out there somewhere. But I couldn't prove it. What do we got for next week, Mr. Tom?
Well, Phil. Well, William. What's your name again? Michael. Well, Michael, next week's movie is a favorite classic science fiction film, a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978. It is available on YouTube for at least a little while. Then it'll probably disappear like the movie I wanted to originally do, but I had the forethought to check it. So, Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978 with Leonard Nimoy. Back to you. This is KE5ICX.
You feeling okay?
I'm fine.
Okay, I'll trust you this instance. All right, well, this has been your Afterglow Movie Net for Saturday, the 14th of November, 2020. And like most of 2020, we're going to promptly try and forget that it existed. I saw a lovely ornament to put on the tree. I need to go find a better copy, or find a copy and print it out and hang it on my tree. Get my 3D printer warmed up. I tell you what it says, but I can't say words like that on the radio. Y'all have a good night. WT9V 73.
KG5Z&J. I was just talking to Tom on chat, and what was up with the mime gang? They looked like a bunch of Marcel Marceaus. Anyways, it's pretty hard to be tough if you're dressed like a mime. I don't know. Maybe they came from the theater district in New York City. I don't know. KG5Z&J.
Wait a minute, what is this? You're talking to Tom on chat. Why aren't you in the chat with the rest of us? How many other chats does Tom have going on? He's chatting behind my back while I'm over here sweating on this microphone. Or over this hot mic. Something like that. This hot radio. WT9V.
KG5Z&J. Oh, just the Facebook chat. Sometimes I chat with Tom during movie time. It's funny. KG5Z&J.
Tom, you should invite him into the movie group chat thing so that the rest of us can enjoy this too. Quit holding out on us, Tom.
All right, I'll do it, but you do realize that I have to say this quietly so he can't hear. He is Canadian.
I have vague memories of this.
KG5, CIX.
The time is 12:05 a.m.
Yes, sir.
The SpaceX was supposed to launch today. Has anybody else heard about that? Did that work, or there's supposed to be 4 astronauts on that thing going up to the space station? Has anybody heard about that? I kind of forgot about it.
Well, I haven't heard anything about it, but then again, I've been doing other things. Tom is the person who normally does launches, so Tom?
No, it was delayed by weather. Delayed by weather they actually made a decision on Friday to delay 24 hours. So it will launch Sunday evening at around 6:30 our time, local time. So yeah, you can jump in then and see the launch. SpaceX will be doing it. NASA starts coverage around 3. Actually, I think they start around 2 o'clock our time, Central Time, and then the launch is around 6:30 our time. So that's the plan. And then they got, I think it's 8 hours to a power descent to the International Space Station, which is a really quick rendezvous. The old shuttle used to take a couple of days to get there, at least 24 hours. So that's kind of a speedy thing, but that's what it is.
Received it. You said it's going to be Sunday. I kind of watched that. My mom and dad live by the SpaceX station down at Boca Chica by Brownsville, and I kind of watched that a little bit, but I kind of lost track of when they were supposed to launch. I thought it was 7:49 p.m. tonight, but all right. Well, I appreciate the help there. Talk to you guys later. Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-ray. You heard it on the X.
Hey, Billy's out there. I didn't realize I messed up. She was. I was checking the other chats, but I went back and looked at Echolink, and she is there. So she says she wants to say something. That's KF5PDS. That's Miss Billy. I think about the movie. So she's over in Sherman from KD5ICX. Billy, go ahead.
I guess we'll have to start another net called the Afterglow. Yeah, it was, well, not all your fault, Tom. I got it to get snacks, and I guess I missed the Echolink initial call, and I was waiting for another, I guess, a secondary check-in, and I was waiting for a drop trying to get in, but, and you were talking probably with Frank over there on the Facebook. So you got a lot of irons in the fire over there, Tom, so that's all right. Yeah, I did want to I wanted to throw some things out there. Some of the things already got said, which is cool, but one thing that I had heard about the film The Warriors from another film called Frailty. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Frailty, that starred Bill Paxton. That's a great psychological thriller. If you've never heard of it, check it out. But in the movie, they're the 2 young boys that play the brothers in the film. the younger one wants to go see Meatballs at the theater, but the older brother wants to go see The Warriors. He said he and some friends were going to go see The Warriors, and so that was the first time I'd heard about The Warriors. And I just never watched it until it got thrown out there for the net, and I'm like, well, dang it, I'm going to step up and watch. And so I watched most of it. I didn't get a chance to see all of it, so I do look forward to finishing it. But I like these films that have like the journey in the middle of the night kind of feel to them. I think they're really cool. But I know the bozo alert. I don't want to bozo, so let me stop for a sec. But yeah, I thought the characters were really neat. Unless I've missed part of it, because like I said, I didn't get to see the whole thing. But I was kind of looking forward to a run-in with the Mime Gang. I know y'all were talking about them. I was thinking, oh, how very Clockwork Orange of them to put a mime gang in there. And I was kind of hoping to see some interaction with them because they were very standout in that opening scene, and they were one of the ones that they kind of showed. And I kind of hoped some of the other ones that they had kind of focused on in that opening scene that they would have actually had run-ins with them, and that was, so to me, that was a little disappointing. I'd hoped for a big, like warrior mime showdown. But someone had mentioned the actor who played, the guy who does the bottle clink. That's like the iconic scene. I had seen that before seeing this film. Saying he had never acted again, that is totally wrong, because he's had a extensive career in TV and film ever since The Warriors over the past 40 years, but that was his first film, which when I heard that he just or brought that in from real life, I thought that was really genius. The first movie I had seen him in was Dreamscape in 1984. He played the bad guy, Tommy Ray, and then when I saw that he was in this film, I was like, oh, cool. But yeah, he's just chillingly scary. I mean, he's just got the whole psycho thing down. His character is just really, but I thought the movie was really good. I like you, Tom, I got out a map, and I had my map app out, and I was trying to track where they were going throughout the whole movie, just, to see if I could pick up on visual clues as to where they were. So I was looking up, and they were on 96th Street, and I'm like, 96th and Broadway, where is that? Because I've never been to New York before. So I thought that was really interesting. But, yeah, very straightforward plot with some interesting characters. It reminded me of what they would show, like, in 1980s on cable. I don't know if y'all remember the show called Night Flight, but this would have been a perfect Night Flight movie to show after hours. And speaking of after hours, that's another good film that takes you across New York. I think it's New York. I don't know if it's New York or Chicago, but it's like after hours, like in the wee hours of the night up until dawn, one man's journey just trying to get home. That's another good film. It's not sci-fi or anything, but that's an extremely good film that kind of has the same kind of feel to it. If he just keeps getting sidetracked from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's just a super cool movie. So with that, I'll stop bending your ear, but thanks for sticking around to chat with me. I appreciate it. It's KF5TDS.
I'm very sorry that I forgot to ask for check-ins again. I will go whip myself with a wet noodle 27 times, and I'm really sorry. I knew I was forgetting something, and Tom was not being any help at all. I'm going to blame it on him because it's always his fault. But it's really my fault, and I'm sorry. I apologize. WT9B.
Kilo golf.
No worries, Michael. It'll teach me not to get up and get snacks. I need to stick around and get in on the check-in, and then after I've checked in, I should go get my snacks. So I was getting some chips and a Dr. Pepper, getting all set. But I enjoyed everybody's comments. I really enjoyed the net. So it's okay, So I just need to learn to stay put and get myself checked in and then wander away from the radio. So no worries. But it was such a good movie. And I look forward to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I like that version. I think it's the one with Donald Sutherland in it. And he's just super chillingly good, too. He does really good work. in thriller type films. So that's going to be a neat one to watch too. 5 PDS.
Okay, somebody doubled with you, but you completely won. It was distortion, but couldn't hear anything of the other station. So, once again, I'm sorry, and I'll try to do better next time. But, I honestly wasn't planning on doing the net tonight, but Tom seems so plaintive. Other station, go ahead again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I stepped on her. I didn't realize that. I was just going to say that After Hours is a really, really good movie. My wife and I watched that back in the 80s. Sorry for stepping on you. Kilo Golf 5, Zulu India X-Ray. You heard it on the X.
That's okay. Like I said, she totally won that double. So, all right. Well, anyway, yeah, been an interesting night. And who knew there was an ultimate director's cut out there? 79B.
W5FC.